Can you guess which of these responses, A or B, is greatly preferred by readers? Uh, if you guessed response B, you are correct. I've I've asked people to look at these actual responses again and again, and just vote on which one they think is better. There's this huge preference for B. Uh, why? Well, here's what people say when I ask them. They comment on response A and they say, they have good things to say. It's clear, it's concise, the language is good, but it doesn't connect the passages well. It's been described as formulaic, or I've also heard people say it reminds me of high school writing. Here's what they have to say about B. Well, they feel that it flows better. They've described it as more engaging. They say that it hooks you at the beginning, that you can hear the voice of the author more, and that it offers analysis instead of just telling you what's in the passage. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Really, though, these two responses represent two different approaches to writing. Response A, that's what we'll call a summary. Response B, that's what we'll call a synthesis. How do these approaches seem different? Well, by thinking about these and looking at some of the comments, you might have a sense, but it can help to just look up these terms, this jargon, in a dictionary. And when you do, here's what you see. Here's a web definition for summary. We get, a brief statement or account of the main points of something. And that's really what the writer of response A is doing there, right? Looking at, here's what this one passage kind of said. Here's what the next passage kind of said, right? Well, but here's what we see when we look up synthesis. This is key. Combination of ideas to form a theory or system. We also see this word used in science, but it actually connects to the type of writing we're doing here too. More on that in a second. This idea of combination is key, and it also relates to what people are saying up here about hearing the voice of the author, right? And probably how it's more engaging in the end too. It helps to really think about what is going on in terms of a topic, right? When you look at response A, well, as a matter of fact, if you take response A and you put it into word counter, take a look at what you'll see. Here's response A. Most repeated word, passage. That's really what the writer's focused on, right? He kind of, at the front of the sentences, that's really what the writer is kind of putting the emphasis on. And there's a lot of talk about what the passages say, what the passages do. The writer is really kind of, that's the topic here, right? That's really what the writer's focused on, summarizing each of these passages one at a time. Now, what happens then when you put the other response B into word counter? What emerges? Well, we get something different. Now we see the focus is on students, in particular Berkeley students, right? And there's that's what you see kind of coming up a lot in the writing, right? So that kind of gives us more of a unified focus, something in particular we can talk about, and that we can develop a main idea. The writer wants to tell us something about Berkeley students. In particular, the writer has this kind of original observation. Topic, Berkeley students, they represent a fascinating paradox. That's a main idea. We don't really get a clear sense of main idea. Just so much, some summary of what, was going on in the sources, right? It's kind of left to the reader to connect the dots, and that's harder to do, right? That's not easy reading. Synthesis, allows for easy reading. It allows for readers to really focus on the key ideas more than who said what. All right. It helps to think about what these words summary and synthesis really mean at their core, and to do that, we can think about word roots. All right. Sum. It means total. That's why if you have to pay the sum, you have to pay the total amount. But we also see this in things like summit. If you made it to the summit, you made it across the whole mountain, right? The total. If you consume something, you eat the whole thing. All right. If you look at a sin, you get a different word root. Sin or sim, that can mean together. Like if you synchronize your watches, they're at the same time. Chron meaning time, right? Or how about the symphony? That's the same phone, the same sound, right? All the musicians are playing together, right? And it also helps to think of an analogy for synthesis writing in terms of like photosynthesis, what plants do. When we talk about making kind of chemical compounds and synthesis, it's really kind of similar to the process of synthesis writing. Think about what plants do, right? They take this different stuff, these different ingredients. You take carbon dioxide and you take water and then you add light, but then you make something new with it. Now notice the core ingredients are the same, but the product is different. You make something that didn't exist there before, and that's what synthesis writers are doing. They're taking source material and they're combining it, and they're making something new, something that carries their voice, and something that ultimately can engage readers way more than any summary can.